Would you want to see intervention from, I mean, President Trump is talking about watching closely what happens in Iran. You're comparing potentially what happens in Uganda to Iran. Would you want to see intervention from the likes of the US or other Western powers?
That's quite a tricky question, and you can tell. He's asking him, would you endorse regime changes by the US government, like what we saw in Venezuela? How does Bobi Wine handle this? What do they say?
But first, just last week, Ugandan authorities told rights watchdogs that worries about Thursday's presidential election triggering an internet blackout were baseless and driven by rumour mongering. Well,
like I said, false as in uno, false as in omnibus, false in one thing, false in everything. Never trust the Ugandan government.
I came to support Museveni because I like him. Since day one, I love Museveni.
Since day one, I love Museveni. How do you didn't even know him, but since day one.
We have peace, we have freedom of speak. We do
I mean, in the same, you've just seen that non-government organizations were suspended, internet shut down, but she's convincing you that she supports Museveni because of free speech. These people, my God.
You're watching Mordecai Marissa Live Political Commentary. Please consider subscribing to help grow Uganda's Voices of Struggle ecosystem. Thank you.
I cannot appreciate you enough for using your valuable time to always go on social media, break down things for people.
And yes, indeed, presenting to you from these United States of the America. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're watching me. My name is Mordecai Marissa, and you're welcome to Mordecai Marissa Live. Exactly. From wherever you're watching me, if you're able to watch me in Uganda, I know you're still under internet shutdown, but big up on yourself and welcome aboard Mordecai Marissa Live. Ready to go? Exactly. And if you're watching me from the UK, United Kingdom, United States of the America, if you're watching me from the Middle East, down in Africa and South Africa, big up on yourself. A lot of friends in Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, men in Sierra Leone and Liberia. A lot of folks from Nigeria and Ghana. I do really appreciate folks in Kenya and Tanzania. I think I mentioned Tanzania and Rwanda, Democratic Republic of Congo and Sudan. Thank you so much, guys. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, today is the day Ugandans head to the polls to elect the next president of Uganda, with a vast majority putting their hope and trust in one and only Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert, famously known as Bobi Wine. The question now is, will he be sworn in May? That's the biggest question, because there's no doubt he's got the vast majority's support. But Museveni continues his firm grip on power. Let's see. Excuse me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we see in Uganda, excuse me. Well, I had to cough a little bit right there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we see in Uganda is the death of a grotesque, evil, criminal regime dying, and the birth of a new nation. The end of the Museveni's criminal regime, who betrayed the Ugandan people. And I'll tell you about his betrayal. Back in the 1980s, shortly after he lost the election, he convinced our grandparents and our parents that he had found out the problem of Africa. One of them was the leaders who overstayed in power, those who abused their power. He spoke against the lawlessness and impunity of abducting, torturing, and killing of innocent people. And many Ugandans joined him when he launched a war against the government of Milton Obote, only to win the war 5 years after and degenerated into worse than Idi Amin and Obote combined. Now we go into polls with hope in a man who was only 6 years when Museveni became president. And this is Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert. Today, Ugandans head to the polls. I'm going to go on and give you a few videos, the last interviews Bobi Wine had, that just a few short clips, and then I'll give my commentary. But I've had a number of people ask me, they'll be like, hey, Mordecai, if Museveni is this brutal criminal tyrant, a dictator, what gives Bobi Wine this confidence that he might become president, that he may be able to be sworn in May as president of Uganda? And I understand the cynicism and skepticism from those people. And I know why they come to those kind of conclusions, because that's what criminal regimes do. They build around themselves an image that makes you look at them as ginormous, and you look at yourself as this minuscule, an iota of a human being. And that's psychological warfare. They defeat you by telling you you cannot. So, if they're able to convince the vast majority of people give up. And once they give up, they rule them forever. Bobi Wine refuses to give up. He looks in the eyes of these folks, Museveni and his minions and lackeys, and say, we are taking you on. Relying on hope and faith in the Ugandan people. He cannot do it by himself. It is us and him. With God guiding us, then he's going to be able to do it. Criminal regimes always want to create a system that gives birth to a despondent, apathetic, mundane, detached citizenry. As long as you be like, oh, I'm not concerned about politics. That's how they want you. Then they can levy ridiculous taxes on you and you won't complain, because after all, that's politics. They can abuse your rights. They can plunder your nation. They can do whatever they want because you are tuned out, and we say no. So Bobi Wine goes into this election knowing that, hey, he might not be announced as president, but maybe he may be able to awaken the consciousness of the vast majority of Ugandans, and maybe as a result of awakening that consciousness, they may rise up non-violently to take on the criminal regime. How about that? But hey, more on that. I'll show you a few videos I told you about. This was an interview of Bobi Wine on Bloomberg. Watch here.
We have a president that has been in power for 40 years. And his first statement when it came to power in 1986, he said Africa's problem in general, and Uganda in particular, are the leaders that overstay in power.
That's what he said.
Been in power for 40 years.
Imagine that. He said the problem of Africa and Uganda in general are leaders who overstay in power. He's been in power for almost 40 years, and he still wants to keep going. 45 and maybe 50 or 60. There's that... it's a Latin and legal maxim. I think it's forsus in uno, forsus in omnibus, which means false in one thing, false in everything. And that's Museveni. If he wasn't able to keep his word back in the 90s, the early 2000s, what makes people think that, oh, maybe this man has got an epiphany? He's going to realize that, hey, it's actually Africa's problems. But I digress.
And the nation has been reduced to family rule, where his son leads the military, his wife leads the most important ministry, and this family controlling the most lucrative sectors in the country. I believe that through this election, the people of Uganda should be allowed to get involved, take charge of their future,
exactly,
and shape a country that makes sense to everybody, regardless of their background or ethnicity.
Would you want to see intervention from, President Trump is talking about watching closely what happens in Iran. You're comparing potentially what happens in Uganda to Iran. Would you want to see intervention from the likes of the US or other Western powers?
That's quite a tricky question, and you can tell. He's asking him, would you endorse regime changes by the US government, like what we saw in Venezuela? How does Bobi Wine handle this?
There's always intervention in Uganda. We are partners. We are development partners. The same way, the international community gets involved in Uganda for business and for military cooperation and others, they should get involved for the stability and well-being of the people of Uganda.
Brilliant.
That is what partnership is all about, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. That's brilliant. He says, hey, how about you come up with a few conditions? We're helping Uganda in these sectors, but with conditions: respect for human rights, the end of this firm grip on power, and stuff like that. Let it not be, what is it called, friends with benefit? I think that's what's a relationship where you're with a partner for conjugal rights or stuff only. But says, why don't you now hold him accountable to his lawlessness and impunity? Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. He says, yeah, he's not calling for a regime change, a violent criminal, violent regime change like we've seen in Iraq or Libya and elsewhere. He says, how about we use this way? That's soft way of holding someone to account. Okay, let's go on here and listen to another story from France 24 English. What do they say?
But first, just last week, Ugandan authorities told rights watchdogs that worries about Thursday's presidential election triggering an internet blackout were baseless and driven by rumour mongering. Well,
like I said, false as in uno, false as in omnibus, false in one thing, false in everything. Never trust the Ugandan government.
on Tuesday, the Communication Commission ordered telecoms companies in Uganda to shut down the internet from 6 p.m. local time. Officials say that it's to tackle disinformation, but critics of President Yoweri Museveni, who's running for a seventh term, believe that it's all aimed at smothering opposition voices. Two local rights groups who criticised crackdowns on journalists and opposition were also ordered to close on Tuesday. Now, Museveni's been in power since 1986, and many young Ugandans are keen to see what life might be like under different leadership. Now, as Juliette Montier tells us more.
Election week in Uganda. At the headquarters of the main opposition party, young activists are making sure every voter is properly registered.
We are trying to distribute the different registers to different districts. What you're seeing here, these papers are registers containing people's names, photos. It's a lot of work, but that is the importance of youth. Young people, we come here, volunteer, because we want a new government that is going to work for us.
This should be, I should make this clear. The Electoral Commission is supposed to hand over those documents to the presidential contenders 2 weeks before the election. They handed them to the NUP, I think 7 days to the election. They're always breaking the law.
As the campaign draws to a close, young people are more invested than ever in their candidates. The group Gen Z for Museveni is campaigning for continuity. Today's agenda, recording a podcast.
We're going to talk about security and how it affects young people, job opportunities, wealth creation, things like that affect the Gen Z in Uganda.
With 73% of the population aged 30 or under, the youth vote will be decisive. That's why these activists are turning to social media.
Yeah, that's another money siphoning venture. They are creating these social media platforms where they can convince Museveni that he's got his support from the young people. It's really, really sad. Another video, maybe this should be the last one. This was Al Jazeera English. Let's watch here.
The final leg ahead of Uganda's elections on Thursday. 8 presidential candidates and politicians eyeing the more than 500 parliamentary seats have been wooing voters. The country's leader, with all the trappings of power, is popular among older voters and those in rural areas. He held
older voters who make up what? 1%?
his final rally in Kampala.
A lot of excitement here at the final rally of President Yoweri Museveni. He is going to be addressing his supporters and basically what he has been saying throughout this campaign period. That
I should make this clear as well. These are not his supporters. If you're watching from another part of Africa, what Museveni did during this campaigning season, he was paying people to be ferried to his venue, to the venues where he was going to hold rallies. So you might look at these numbers and be like, hey, actually people support him. Absolutely not. If you've been following my social media political commentary, we've shown you videos of people being ferried from districts. They are given T-shirts they're given food, and they're given money to be present at Museveni's rallies to create an image to the outside world that he's still popular. But we're talking about a man who presides over unemployment, unbelievable, ridiculous levels of poverty, the abuse of human rights, and he's got support. You must be kidding me.
He is campaigning on a platform of continuity and stability.
Supporters say he's a safe pair of hands.
We have seen changes so far. Stadiums have been built, roads.
I came to support Museveni because I like him. Since day one, I love Museveni.
Since day one, I love Museveni. How do you didn't even know him, but since day one.
We have peace, we have freedom of speak. We do
I mean, in the same, you've just seen that non-government organizations were suspended, internet shut down, but she's convincing you that she supports Museveni because of free speech. These people, my God. Oh, we've got freedom. While over not 100, over 700 supporters of Bobi Wine are in prison. We have peace because she believes she's living that peace, a facade. Definition of peace. Like we've already said, peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. How many people are crying, desperate for justice? They were sent to prisons. Many of them were disappeared. Others are still languishing in torture chambers. And you talk about we have peace. But like I told you, what does she know about peace?
everything. We are protected.
People power.
Bobi Wine, Museveni's biggest challenger, has had a more dramatic campaign. He and his supporters have been regularly targeted by security forces.
Bobi Wine's campaigns have been quite difficult. Throughout the campaign, he has been tear gassed by security forces. His rallies have been blocked. His supporters have been harassed and beaten up.
This protest vote is in defiance to end bad leadership, nepotism, corruption. We need a new Uganda which functions with no corruption, freedom and employment for everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough for now. I'll tell you this. These folks betrayed us. More especially these people who posture around like they are liberators, protectors and fighters, freedom fighters of the African continent. They are complete charlatans. All of them, many of them, I won't say all of them, but go back and read how they were. They left power. I think the only man whom I have immense respect for is that man you see in the background. After 27 years at Robben Island, tortured, inhumanly treated for opposing the apartheid regime in South Africa, he's granted his freedom in early 90s. He becomes president. He could have felt entitled to be president. He could have said, actually many South African people wanted him to be president, just like they were with George Washington in the USA shortly after the Continental War. They said, hey, can you be king? Just be King George, like King George III, who was in the UK at that time. Only for him to say, no, it's enough. Hands over power. Nelson Mandela did the same thing. One term, and he's out. And the rest of these Museveni, the Mugabe, the Gaddafi, to mention but a few, they are betrayers. They were liars from day one, and that's Museveni. He represents the last crew or groups of liars who manipulated our people. We lost almost 500,000 people in a war, the Luwero War, that was started by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. So, as Ugandans head to the polls, let's remain hopeful. Let's remain hopeful and keep that faith. Let's not lose it. Things are going to change, but it requires us to actively get involved. Like I said, criminal regimes like that of Museveni, they build an image that makes you think about them as indispensable, undisputable, ginormous. You can't do nothing. And once that is sealed in your psychology, your conclusion is, I should actually give up. Bobi Wine says no. That's why he's been able to engage the Ugandan people. He's been tear gassed, assaulted, his people brutalized, many maimed, others abducted, others tortured, others killed, he continued going forward, campaigning for 90 days. That alone earns him my respect. If presidency is the one that makes you grant him your respect, I'm sorry. You're looking at an image of the presidency, but not what really makes the substance of that. So let's keep going forward. I believe we are going to win. Let's go out in big numbers. If you're in Uganda, please make sure that you tell people to engage, to go out and vote and stick 20 meters away from the polling stations, just like the law requires us to. 20 meters away from the polling station, and let's see what comes out of that experiment. All right, that's it for now. My name is Mordecai Morisa. I wish you a wonderful time. Please make sure that you are subscribed, and I will truly, truly, truly appreciate. See you when you see me. Stay peaceful, but be confident and bold and assertive, non-violently. I'll see you when you see me. Bye-bye.
Did you enjoy what you just watched?
I'm sure they did.
I'm going to guess that you did. How about you consider subscribing to Mordecai Marissa Live YouTube channel? Thank you.